Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing 10 mystery novels that played me. These are all books that just had a fun mind game with me. I wasn't able to guess the ending, and a lot of them had either like interesting twists or just different things that really left me sitting there after I finished reading going like just thinking and thinking and thinking. Okay, so one book that really played me, and this one surprised me because it's definitely a cozy mystery, but the way everything was wrapped up, like I just was left there flabbergasted. And this is the book Crust No One by Winnie Archer. This is part of the Breadshop mystery series, which I really love. It follows our main character Ivy, who is a freelance photographer and like part-time employee in this bread shop, and it talks a lot about homemade bread, which just makes you so hungry. It's actually, I really want to try making bread now. I've made like pumpkin bread, banana bread, biscuits before, but I've never made like sandwich or like, you know, toast kind of bread. So I really want to try now. This cover here is really cute. This is book 2 in the series. The first book was called Needed to Death in the series, and it was really great. Just the ending for this, this will be a spoiler-free video, but wow, like I just was finished. I remember I was in bed finishing this book one night, and I just laid there after I finished the book, closed it shut, and was sitting there flummoxed because it was so, like, everything came together so incredibly well, but it was a little darker than I had expected for a cozy mystery. Still definitely cozy, all of the, you know, as is true with cozy mysteries, like the, you know, the violence and stuff that happens with the crime, that stuff happens off screen, but it just, wow, she really played me so well in this. I had no idea until like the very end, and it was such a wonderful reveal. And the funny thing is yesterday I actually finished book 4 in the series, which is called Flower in the Attic, and I loved book 3, but this one kind of delivered like book 2, where it just punches you in the gut. It was such a fantastic reveal. The details came together so beautifully in my opinion, and I was truly just kind of horrified, really. Again, not in a way where these weren't cozy mysteries, but just where everything came together so well, and the motives and everything. It was just like, oh no. And I would highly recommend this series. Like, the main character Ivy is really delightful. She's spunky. She often works with her octogenarian neighbor, Miss Branford, who is just the funniest character. I absolutely love her. Ivy frequently says this, and I agree. I want to be her when I'm in my 80s because she has so much zest for life, and it's just, I love her. She's amazing. There's so many wonderful female characters in these books, and there's just such a sense of community between them. There's just, I love it. You gotta read these. You really, really should check these out if you enjoy cozy mysteries. They will make you hungry. The mysteries are well thought out. The characters are amazing. The slice of life moments are great. There's some good subplots that are developing in the character's personal life. So I would recommend, if you can, reading them in order, but you can jump in at any point. If you're really interested in checking out book 2 first, you could jump in and you'd be okay. But recommend these. This was the first one I thought of for this mystery that I had to include it. It really got me good. So our next one is My Cousin Rachel by Daphne DuMaurier, and this book is more of a suspense book, I would say. There's definitely like some mystery elements, but it's not like a classic like murder mystery or like thriller, certainly, but it's very much like a gothic suspense. And if you haven't read her work before, I highly recommend it. She's the author of Rebecca, which is one of my all-time favorite novels, but My Cousin Rachel actually rivals Rebecca for me, which I know is kind of a hot take because I know Rebecca is kind of her most famous work, certainly, but My Cousin Rachel took me for such, like, every time I thought I knew what was happening in this book, it was just completely like the rug was yanked out from underneath me and I had no idea. The basic plot line of this is that our main character, I believe he's like the cousin of this wealthy man named Ambrose, and Ambrose has kind of taken him in because there was some like issues with his parents and stuff, and basically he's an adult now. He's working on helping like manage this giant estate with Ambrose, and Ambrose's health worsens. It's set in England and it's very cold and wet and damp there, so his doctor recommends for his lungs that he goes out to Italy, kind of soaks up some sunlight, you know, gets out of like the cold damp climate. So he goes on travels abroad while his cousin stays behind watching the place, and his cousin's in his very young 20s, and while he's out abroad, he actually runs into his cousin Rachel, and they actually end up getting married. Now, This is a man who was a complete bachelor for his entire life. I think he's about in his 60s, I want to say. So the main character is immediately suspicious of Rachel because he's kind of like, well, what did she do? Like, how'd she talk him into this? Like, it seems so strange. And while he's out there, he actually ends up dying. Ambrose does. So our main character is immediately suspicious and kind of throwing out these accusations about Rachel, saying that she murdered him somehow, and he's just so upset. And the two, of course, end up meeting at the estate, and there's just a ton of drama. And the whole time throughout the book, you're just sitting there like, did she do it? What, is she like a Black Widow? You know, was it just a really tragic death that he just got married and then unfortunately just passed away shortly after? The way the author like plays with your mind and your emotions during this will get you every time. It's just such a weird storyline, but it works so well. And the setting in DuMaurier's books is always so creepy and so suspenseful. Like, it feels like the setting of her books is in itself a character because of how big a part it plays in her books usually. And I love it. I would absolutely recommend her work. So our next one is another cozy mystery I checked out from my library. It's called Strawberried Alive by Jenn McKinlay. It's part of my Cupcake Bakery mystery series that I just love. I have a couple of the books here, but these are just darling. They have really, really cute covers. Strawberried Alive is the newest addition to the series. I believe it's book 14, so it's a pretty extensive series. Basically, it takes place after Mel, our main character, has gotten married, and Mel and her best friend Angie run the Fairy Tale Cupcakes bakeries, so that's kind of, you know, the theme for the series is the cupcakes. So it's definitely a delicious series. There are lots of recipes at the end of every single book if you are someone who enjoys that. But the Strawberried Alive really caught my attention because of the way like everything came together at the end. This one really kept me guessing. Like, some of the other books in this series definitely were really, you know, had good mysteries. They were compelling. I'm a big fan of the series, so of course I like it. But when I think of it, this one really stood out in terms of being a very unique plot, in my opinion, and it was just really like on the edge of my seat, and I just couldn't put it together. And then everything came together at the end, and I was like, wow. And it was just an amazing mystery. So the basic premise of Strawberried Alive is that one night Mel, who is a recent newlywed to, like, I always forget what his specific job is, but he's like an attorney who deals with different criminal cases. So sometimes that kind of plays into the mysteries because, you know, he sometimes angers people because he puts people behind bars. So of course that's not, you know, that doesn't make the criminal and their family happy, of course, so sometimes that kind of angers them. But in this case, Mel is locking up one night at the bakery, and she walks out of the bakery and is actually shot at. Now, you know, fortunately they miss her, but it ends up that people around her start to blame her, like the different shop owners in the area, because they blame her for kind of having insinuated herself into different crimes in the past and solved things, and they're blaming her, saying she's like a danger to the Scottsdale, Arizona, like old town area that she is in, and she's getting a lot of heat from other shop owners. However, shortly after this, another shop owner is actually attacked as well in a similar manner. And so people start to think, well, are people just targeting the shop owners? It wasn't just about Mel, she just happened to be the first. And the conclusion for this, how everything came together, it was so good. I was fascinated. I loved the thought and detail that was put into this one. I would recommend the Cupcake Bakery mystery series in general if you like cozy mysteries. This is a really great one. I love the best friend dynamics between Mel and Angie, and it's just a delicious and well thought out series in general, but this one in particular really caught my attention with the way the mystery played with my mind. I loved it. So the next one is actually a thriller by Lucy Foley, and this is The Paris Apartment, and I really loved this. Lucy Foley has been one of the best thriller writers for me so far. I didn't love The Hunting Party, but both The Guest List and The Paris Apartment have made this list for me because they were such amazing thrillers. Very dark, very intense, very fast paced. Like, both of them I finished within like 48 hours of starting because I had to know, which is exactly what I want from a thriller. And The Guest List basically takes place on a remote island. It's taking place with a wedding, and a body is found. However, throughout the book, you don't know whose body has been found because it's flashing back and forth. So you're getting the backstories of the characters, the leading up to the characters and the time of death and everything, and it's just absolutely fascinating. I was so far off from who did it, like I had no idea. Keeping in mind with what kind of characters you like to read about, Lucy Foley's characters are very much unlikable in general, I would say. Like I tend to not like basically any of them except for one or two, but they're very flawed, they're very messed up, and they're very entertaining to read about. So depending on what you like, and the guest list actually takes place where you're reading it and you're reading from multiple points of view, which normally isn't my preferred way to read a book, but I feel like she did a really good job and I was able to keep track of everything easily. The guest list was just incredibly suspenseful because of the remote setting, the island. It just had so much drama with it, and again, the mystery, the way it like came together at the end, I had no idea. I was so far off. I was so impressed. I absolutely loved it. And then the Paris apartment takes place where our main character is having a lot of difficulties with her life. She's a pretty sympathetic character, I found, so I did enjoy her character more. And basically she reaches out to her brother, who she's not super close to, and like gives him a heads up and be like, I really need to crash with you for a few days. And so she goes out to his Paris apartment. However, when she arrives, he's not there. Like there's no sign of him. She cannot locate him, and this is very much unlike him. So she starts to worry and she starts to dig in deeper and talk to the other like people at the apartment and try to figure out what happened to her brother, basically. So it's a really suspenseful read, and the conclusion for this book was so absolutely disturbing. So if you really like to just be shocked and to kind of finish a book and be like, wow, that was a lot, that was just a lot that went on, a lot of like kind of disturbing elements. Again, this is a very dark read, but I really did enjoy it. So if you're looking for thrillers that will play with your mind, I think Lucy Foley is a great writer. I would avoid The Hunting Party. I didn't really care for that one nearly as much. It was one of her earlier books, but these two were excellent in my opinion, and I really enjoyed them and how they kind of messed with me throughout the entire book. I didn't guess, I think, either of these conclusions. They were really shocking to me, and it was just highly entertaining. So this next one is called Body and Soul Food by Abby Collette. I checked it out from my library. It was an excellent read. So this is part of a new series. She just released book 2, which I'm hoping to get my hands on soon. And this is part of the Books and Biscuits mystery series, and it takes place with 2 fraternal twins who have reunited as adults. And so that's a really sweet component. Both of the twins were really, really fleshed out. One twin loves to cook like soul food, and the other twin actually has a background as a librarian, so they decide to do a joint venture together and open a cafe where the one twin will be cooking and the other will be like curating a book collection, bookshop. And it's just this beautiful combination of things. The way they described the opening of the shop in the first book, this particular book, was really good. I will give you a heads up because I was a little disappointed about this, but there is a spoiler for Murder on the Orient Express in this, and I feel like it was very unnecessary to include that detail. Like, I don't think it really contributed much to the book, and I was a little disappointed about that because I haven't read that book yet. I was looking forward to it. So if you haven't read that, or it would bother you to be spoiled for that Agatha Christie book, heads up on that. But otherwise, I thought the twins in this were very personable. They had really well fleshed out backstories. They were, struggling with different parts of their relationship because, they hadn't known each other the whole life. So one of them grew up in a pretty nice, like, middle-class family, and the other grew up in a foster care system. So there's a lot of different differences in their backgrounds and things, and they're just trying to come together. The basic mystery with this is that one of them has a foster brother, and the foster brother is found dead on the train, and they're trying to figure out what happened to him because it's fairly obvious that this was like some kind of murder or foul play was involved in some way. So they start to look into it, and they get closer and closer to the truth, and it's just a really wonderful, cozy mystery, very well thought out. Fantastic characters. I still remember reading the ending and the way one of the characters pieced together a clue earlier in the book and how it connected to the ending. It was so well thought out. Like, I didn't notice it at all, but it made so much sense. Like, it clicked beautifully. So I would recommend this. I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on book 2, which my library doesn't have right now, but I'm going to hopefully get soon because it's just such an amazing read, and I really look forward to more in this series. This next one is really fun. If you're looking for a Christmas cozy mystery that will just play with your mind, if you like historical fiction, this is it. This is the 12 Clues of Christmas from the Royal's Finest mystery series by Rhys Bowen, and wow. This book actually has like 12 distinct clues that are like thematic to the song. It's incredible. I don't know how the author came up with all of these and like kept it straight, but she did, and it was incredible. I love this series. I've read every book in this series so far, and I would highly recommend it as a whole, but this is one of my favorites in the entire series, which is about 16 or 17 books in right now. Basically, you have our main character here, Lady Georgiana, or Georgie as she's called, and she's like 35th in line for the English throne. So she's like a minor royal, but she's not married, she doesn't have the luxuries, the like finances and stuff that a lot of the royals have because of her unmarried status and the fact that she's so far back in line for the throne. So this Christmas season, she is staying with her brother at the Irish like manor. What do they call it? Castle Rannoch. So she's with her brother, her bumbling brother Binky, and sourpuss sister-in-law Fig, who is just a really big pain in the neck, but really fun to read about. And she is getting snowed in, and she's like, I can't stay here, like I need to get out. So she actually applies to help host this like posh holiday party where they want like a elegant guest and like someone to kind of impress people and bring in people for this holiday party. It's kind of an interesting setup. So she applies to it, she gets it, and she goes out to this very perfect like Christmas village that's very much like right out of A Christmas Carol. However, there are 3 major accidents that occur, and they kind of occur simultaneously with different clues alongside the 12 like different aspects of Christmas. What's also really nice about this is it presents a very fun like old-fashioned English Christmas, so you get to learn a little bit more about how that was, and I thought that was really interesting in terms of the historical setting. But I just love this. This mystery was so complex. There were so many layers to it because of the different like 12 clues, the different accidents. There was so much going on. It was like almost hard to keep track, but it really just kept jerking you this way and that way, and like it was so hard to figure out who did it. I had no idea. Like the way this was put together truly felt like kind of Agatha Christie-esque. Like it really had that mind game feel to it, which I really enjoyed, so I recommend that. Speaking of Agatha Christie, I had to have 2 of her books on this list naturally, and it was very hard to pick just 2, but I will start with And Then There Were None, which is of course one of her most famous works. This book, and I have a reading vlog solely dedicated to this with no spoilers. If you want to check it out, I'll link it above. This book is just horrifying. Like the suspense with this, the way it plays with you, your emotions, it was just so deeply like scary. I was really sitting there on the edge of my seat the entire time. The basic premise of this is that you have 10 strangers who have all been invited to this remote island where they're cut off from society, of course, which is the best kind of setting in my opinion. They've been invited to this remote island all under different like pretenses. Like some are like being hired, some of them are being like told that a friend wants them or they need help with this or that, and there's just different pretenses that they're all invited there. They all arrive and they realize they don't really know each other. Like they were all invited by different people, and they're, you know, realizing that something is not adding up. Then that evening someone ends up dying, and it's very, very sudden and strange, and people start to go, okay, this is odd, like we need to get off this island, but they are cut off because of like the bad weather and everything going on. It's incredibly suspenseful. As you can kind of guess from the title, And Then There Were None, people start to die one by one. So you're starting to get more and more suspense because you're narrowing down the characters, and you realize, well, it has to be somebody on this island because nobody can be getting on and off the island. So you're literally in the room with the characters knowing full well it's one of them, and it's just incredibly suspenseful. It's super scary. There's also this macabre nursery rhyme that is on like the doors in each of their rooms, and it seems like there's some kind of parallel between the way they're dying and the nursery rhyme, but it's not very distinct, so you're still kind of sitting there like, I don't know how it's gonna happen, I don't know what, like you're scared the whole time. It's really, really creepy. The conclusion for this, the way it came together, I was floored. I was so impressed. I absolutely loved it. And I think the characters in this are all very interesting and complex, because part of the mystery is that that same night before the first person dies, everyone in the room is accused of a heinous crime. And some of these crimes are a little less terrible than others, but they all kind of involve one way or another that they have caused another person's death, or like some of them directly, some of them indirectly, but it's very interesting to see the reactions of the characters to find out, was this actually accurate? Did they actually commit these crimes? And it's just so incredibly interesting. I absolutely love this. I would recommend this fully. It's one of the most interesting books I've ever read. I couldn't put it down, and the conclusion again floored me. I also recommend the short series, the TV series with this. I believe it's the BBC series that's actually featured right here on the screen. I'll put the official name on the screen for you, but I watched that. It was like a 3-episode series. I think it was about 3 hours. I watched that with my husband and we both really enjoyed it. It was very well done, I thought, and like overall it followed everything pretty well. So that was also really interesting. The other Agatha Christie I have to recommend is The Moving Finger. This one I really, really love. It's a Miss Marple mystery. I believe it's book 3 in the Miss Marple series, and I have loved the Miss Marple books I've read. I thought all of them have had really good plots, but this one in particular, a lot of times with Agatha Christie, I don't have a super firm idea of who I think did it and why by the end. Sometimes it's very vague, my opinion of it, versus other mystery books where I usually have a more solid opinion. But with The Moving Finger, I was so convinced I had it. I really, really thought I had it. She had me going so strongly on a particular idea and who did it, what, how, all of that kind of things. And then it was revealed and I was absolutely just on the floor, completely floored because of how it was revealed. I thought it was amazing. So basically The Moving Finger takes place in a small English village with Miss Marple in it, of course, and different people in the village start to get these letters, and the letters are cut up magazine letters, kind of like the ransom note styles, and the letters are hinting at different kind of affairs or different business you wouldn't want other people to know that other people shouldn't know about but apparently do in some way. So people are getting these letters, and unfortunately it actually leads to someone committing suicide because of what was in the content of their letter. So Miss Marple's on the case trying to figure out what exactly happened, who did it, what the motive was, and I find the concept of the letters to be really fascinating. The way they were put out, the way they were worded, it was a really interesting look at human psychology and the way Miss Marple explored it. Very, very interesting. And like I said, I was so certain. For once, the only time I've read a Agatha Christie that I've actually felt I think I really, really got it this time. She had me fooled so badly. It was such an amazing reveal, and hats off to Agatha Christie. Okay, our last one is Homicide and Halo Halo by Mia P. Manansala. This is part of the Tita Rossi's Kitchen Mystery series. It's book 2 in the series. The first book was Arsenic and Adobo, which I also really, really loved, but book 2 took it to the next level. I loved book 1. I loved that book, but book 2 took the conclusion, the ending, the emotions that I had during this read, and the way my mind was just played with constantly to the next level. Basically, our main character in this, she is a Filipino American, and she has a very large family. There's a lot of interesting family characters and drama, which I really enjoy. I think there's a lot of interesting dynamics and how they support each other, how they get on each other's nerves, just great family stuff there. But her family owns a restaurant, thus the Tita Rossi's Kitchen Mystery, so that is her aunt, and at one point she ends up opening her own cafe with some friends. Everything's going pretty well, and she's actually asked to be a judge for this kind of beauty pageant, which she doesn't know how she feels about it. However, it's going to give her cafe, which is newly opened, some really good publicity, which they could really use. So she does it kind of reluctantly, and someone ends up dying on the judging staff. So she kind of gets her sleuthing hat on and tries to figure out what exactly happened. And what I like too is that she's still kind of reeling from some of the aftermath of the first mystery and just the different things that had occurred during that. I like how it doesn't just dismiss everything that happened in the first book. I would definitely recommend reading them in order if you can. But the main characters in this, very fleshed out, very realistic. I really root for her. I really like her and identify with her in a lot of ways. And the conclusion for this and the who did it and the why and all of that, I was actually in tears. I was so distressed I felt so conflicted in so many ways. It really played with me. It really made me question different ethics and morals and things, and I love that about it. So I would highly recommend it. It was an excellent book. I cannot wait. I have Blackmail and Babinka, which is the third and latest book in the series, which just came out in October. I have it on hold at my library. I'm about to pick it up and I'm very excited. So this was a really great one, and that ends our list today. Please let me know down below what mystery books have really played with you, which ones have fooled you in just such a dramatic way where you were just floored, which ones have left you just ruminating over the book's conclusion and the plot line because it was just so thought out and just artful in the way that author really crafted it. These were some of the ones that came to mind for me, and I would highly recommend them. Let me know what yours are down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. My name is Amy Marie, and I do post a lot of mystery content and book content on my channel every single week. I don't want you to miss out, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!